if you can drive autonomous cars on the roads, then can you drive endoscopes into the patients? Saurabh Jejurikar, welcome to the Scope Forward show. You're the co-founder and CEO of EndoVisionAI. I've been tracking your story and I'm pretty excited to learn a little bit more today. So thanks so much for showing up. No, my pleasure, Praveen. Thanks, first of all, for having me. I think I've been following your show for a while and I've seen quite a few interesting talks. And I think in itself, it's pretty good because there are not so many thought leaderships, especially in gastro. So this is coming up as a very interesting platform. Good luck to you too. But yeah, looking forward to our discussion today. Sort of first off the bat, you're based in Hong Kong. And what intrigued me about your company, your story, was a very small angle. Your co-founder, Deepanshu, is from a self-driving or an autonomous vehicle background. And you told me when we first chatted that your father is a gastroenterologist. And I'm really curious and quite intrigued. How did you guys make the connection from self-driving all the way to endoscopy? How did that transition happen? Yeah, I mean, that's quite an interesting story. I mean, if you talk about even like how we discovered the product. So, like I come from, just like you said, my father, he was a gastroenterologist. Unfortunately, he's no more now. It was initially like we were spending some time talking about problems in the space of gastro. I come from technology background as well, and so is my co-founder. This is something which I was exploring in the field of AI at the time, and then we saw quite a few of startups coming up from like imaging, chest X-rays, like pathology-based startups. So they were like all image-based. We were saying that the next natural thing would be some problems in the endoscopy space. So that's where, like in very early days, I kind of enrolled in an accelerator called Entrepreneur First, where I met Deepanshu, my co-founder. Interestingly, both of us are originally, but we are settled in different places. He was in the US, I was in Hong Kong. And yeah, basically, I was looking for someone like more technical who could handle some of these things. I asked him that, hey, if you can drive autonomous cars on the roads, then can you drive endoscopes into the patients? That's how we jokingly started it. But I think that's exactly what we did. The way we saw the industry was also a bit orthogonal, I would say, in general, because usually, like some of the professors, they are pioneers in their own field and they kind of try to solve their own problems, which is great. But then we saw it the other way around. We were like, hey, we have some new cool modern technologies, and then we are going to conduct more of like a process in which we speak to several key opinion leaders. So that's where we started, spoken to like hundreds of doctors. So I started with the key opinion leaders, the seniors. The narrative is like completely changed when I got down to some of the trainees and the junior doctors, where we say that, hey, actually, you know what, instead of helping the very experienced doctors, like how about we question the skills of the things, like question some of the things that the juniors are really struggling, which the seniors are finding it very trivial and obvious. So that's where like we kind of pivoted away into a field which was like improving the quality for the doctors. We're still helping the doctors in a way, but it's like a quality control. We're saying that, we'll question the doctors instead of giving them some aid to that. And that just came organically. We basically worked backwards from kind of solving what kind of problems could we solve from the technology point of view, and interviewing like hundreds of doctors from seniors to juniors. But we eventually thought that, hey, okay, so as a startup, we have to figure out who is the target audience. And we kind of logged ourselves with the junior doctors. And that's why also like we didn't go after the most common problems like polyp detection, which probably like already 10, 15 products. So if I started that, probably by now we would have been wrapped up. But Destiny had something else in mind. Wonderful. What does the product do? Like, I think it's a good time to cover that. So if it's not polyp detection, then where is self-driving happening inside the gut? So basically the self-driving is happening inside the upper GI tract. But more specifically, what we are trying to do is to help the doctors with quality control. Even more specific, what we're trying to do is to help them reduce the blind spots. So we're not detecting polyps or early cancers, but we're telling them that, hey, like what's the total amount of area that you have covered when you're doing the endoscopy? So similar to, again, like a very direct example is self-driving. So when you're driving, there are some areas which are not in the field of view. So they're the blind spots
in self-driving. Then when you're driving the endoscope inside the patient's body, then you get many more blind spots than that. And 22.5% is the number that has come out from some of the studies. And eventually this leads to not only missed cancers, but, like suboptimal diagnosis. In upper GI, it's more, like vibrant. There are like quite a few diseases. It's not just about cancers, like a lower GI, it's mostly polyps, but no. But for upper GI, you could have a lot of other issues because of that. But yeah, so long story short is we help the doctors to reduce the blind spots. So it's a software-based solution. We're like a class 2A medical device.
I recall either from a video you shared that there's also hardware that goes along, and that's a GPU, correct? Again, going back to the self-driving analogy, the same GPU is used in even self-driving cars.
Exactly. So yeah, I think self-driving cars and gaming was the more optimum thing. Again, like it was not that obvious back then, but then we kind of picked some of the GPUs that the gamers were using. Unfortunately, it should be the other way around. I think like things first should come from the healthcare and then go vice versa. But then, yeah, basically we started with some of those powerful GPUs from the gaming, because for cars, like you really need the tiny ones. But for us, we could still compromise on the form factor, having the bigger machines, but provide us that compute. Slight difference from the polyp detection algorithms, because we have like a few extra models we have to run simultaneously to make the final inference. Right now, this is what we have, like in terms of GPU. In terms of our strategy also, it kind of reflects that we're trying to have holistic solution in which it's not just one or two, but you have like an array of solutions combined. And that's pretty standard as of today. It's not a very out of the box ideas. Pretty much everyone in this field, like the top 4 or 5 companies, are trying to do this. Yeah, we are basically also thinking in the same way to kind of be collaborative, and as long as there's like no cloud-based solutions and they have their own sets of problems, but at least if we talk for the next few years or so, it's probably going to be like the GPU-based solution where you have a hardware and a bunch of SAMDs which would be sitting on top of it.
I'm curious, how does your company or product differentiate itself from the other algorithms or other AI companies? They may be, as you said, like a lot of them may be in the polyp detection space, but how far of a stretch is it for any of them to go to the upper GI tract?
That's actually a great question. And we also think in the same way. It's mostly like if you be it upper GI or lower GI, it's still endoscopy. And either can move and kind of compete with each other in some way, but the way we think is more in collaborative ways. And if some of these things we'll have to probably also go back and collaborations and the kind of things. But long story short, we are thinking that to kind of think from the user's perspective, so what does the user really want? And we work backwards from there. So for example, if there is a company which already has another algorithm, then we would rather focus on something which the users do not have currently. And we provide them with that array of solutions. So 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say there's some detection, there's some quality control, there is, like characterization solutions. We would rather be part of an ecosystem which provides this kind of platform to the users. So eventually the users will benefit. And even like for the startups, the same, right? Eventually, if we are all creating value together, then we can all get our part of the pie, basically trying to make the pie bigger instead of trying to have it all, so that's probably not, there are some companies who are trying to compete with having all these things in-house, but our idea is to kind of be more collaborative, and we would rather invest and develop something which has not been done instead of trying to replicate which is already out there. The solution is there, so why not partner and do it together? That's how we think.
Saurabh, one more thing that really intrigued me about your story is the geography and the locations where you're based. One question, like, so this accelerator program where you met your co-founder, where was that? Was that in Hong Kong as well or somewhere else?
Yes, so this accelerator called Entrepreneur First, so they were here for like a good 2-3 batches, which was like about 1 year. So basically, yeah, they were, like when we're launching at a place like Hong Kong and even Singapore, they're quite active there. So
Okay.
they're attracting like talents from all over the world, So yeah, my co-founder has been there in the Silicon Valley. I was already based out of here, so he kind of flew in just for the program, and maybe somewhere in the stars, like, it has some plans, but Yeah, I think in terms of geography, there are quite a few things which kind of went in our favor. So, like we got some really good connections and contacts with some of the top clinicians, key opinion leaders. And even if you think about like the natural question that comes to mind is, hey, like you're based in Hong Kong, then what could be the target market? So we are basically focusing more on the western side of the populations. And it's kind of common for many of the Hong Kong companies to do their R&D and eventually launch in Europe, US. So that's also like part of the strategy that we have.
Yeah, and I'm seeing this trend across the board in GI. And your co-founder, where is he based?
So my co-founder is right now based in India, like after COVID especially, and we're working remotely. So we do have like a good, like a R&D center, cost center in India. In Hong Kong, we're focusing more on the clinical side of the things. We have collaborations with the hospitals. We have got RCA with the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and we are also incubated in the Hong Kong Science Park, which is actually it's quite good in terms of providing quite a few grants and supports to the startups in the early stage. We have also done a bit of distribution product pilots in Hong Kong. Being a smaller market, having lower regulatory hurdle, it was to actually a perfect place for us to launch and test out quite a few things. We also got a lot of exposure to international conference, like in Hong Kong, of course, we have done, but then Singapore, DDW in the US, similarly in the Europe. So at least if we talk about in the academic world, in the gastro, we are actually Cerebro is and from EndoVision, of course.
One more question on this geography. Like, so the key opinion leaders, you said you spoke to hundreds of gastroenterologists. Most of them, where were they based? On the Asia side or on the Europe side or the US side?
Yeah, well, so I'll give you some idea of the conferences. I've originally coming from India, and my father used to go to some of those conferences. So I actually started from there and based out from Hong Kong. So it was not hard for me to kind of extrapolate and go to some of those conferences in Hong Kong. But after that, I have also been to several other conferences, especially in the US. I've been in a couple of them, including DDW. And like, of course, when you're talking about endoscopy, then Japan is always, you have to add that into the equation. So I would say that most of India, US, Europe, Japan, like clinicians from these places, and each of these places, to be honest, have their own problems. So basically, I got a very good view, like a bird eye view into like how the problems look like in different parts. And as a technologist, like how could we solve some of these problems?
Very, very interesting, Saurabh. Just to recap that for everybody watching or listening. So you're based in Hong Kong. The company got its start in Hong Kong. Your co-founder, originally based in the US, now based in India. You have a development team in India building this product. Some of the rollouts are in Hong Kong, and you're selling in the US market or would be soon in US and Europe. And yet, what I find very surprising in healthcare is the conditioning that healthcare is local. And we keep saying this again and again and again. And companies like yours are actually the antithesis of that. Like, so if anything, it's global and innovation can come from anywhere. Like, so I'm quite amazed by that. So congratulations to you and your team. Is there anything else that you wanted to share today?
First of all, thanks for the invitation and your word of confidence as well. And indeed, quite interesting. Like it's when I think about it, when you say it now, like it's right in my face. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Like from me also.
Excellent. Like so, I just want to summarize the gist of what I'm taking away, or the one big thing that I'm taking away. There's a quote in AI that's been done to death, which is it's not AI that's going to take away your job. It's people using AI, that would take your job, like whichever industry. And then they customize this quote to replace it with, the gastroenterologist or the endoscopist or the physician or the surgeon or, what have you. What I'm taking away with your product, your company, and how you're going about it, and especially the quality metrics that you're building in, it's obvious to me that if an endoscopist, and your focus is on the junior endoscopist, so if a junior endoscopist were to use this, the differentiation between a junior endoscopist and a very well experienced endoscopist would disappear quite literally, because he's going to catch the same things and more with the aid of this tool. And the people who are going to be left behind are people who are really not embracing, or who are thinking that, hey, like I'm still the gold standard and the AI can never be. And they get back into the endoscopy room, put their head in the sand. Like, so that is the biggest risk, and learning about your technology actually demonstrates, how that is going to play out and how that's going to be true. So once again, congratulations on the progress, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.